Every evening at exactly 6, the billionaire's quiet maid vanished from his mansion, and every attempt to track her ended with missing footage, erased records, and unanswered questions. Night after night, she returned before midnight, carrying the same worn leather suitcase, calm and expressionless, while an unsettling feeling grew inside the billionaire that something was being deliberately hidden. Unable to ignore the mystery any longer, he followed her through crowded city streets, dark alleys, and abandoned railway tracks, watching as she moved with absolute certainty toward an unknown destination. The deeper they traveled into the night, the stranger the journey became, until the city disappeared behind them, and a silent forest swallowed the last traces of civilization. As the maid stepped onto a dark forest path without hesitation, the billionaire realized he was no longer chasing her secret. He was being drawn toward a buried truth, waiting in the darkness ahead. The forest closed in around them, swallowing the last trace of the city as tall trees blocked the sky, turning the narrow path into a dim corridor where even the air felt heavier. The maid moved deeper without hesitation, her steps steady and certain, while the billionaire followed with difficulty, branches brushing against him as if the forest resisted his presence. A narrow trail curved ahead toward a fragile wooden bridge over a slow, silent stream where pale mist hovered above the water, unmoving like something suspended in time. She stepped onto the bridge without slowing, crossing it as if she had walked this exact path countless times, while he paused briefly, sensing something deeply unsettling before continuing. On the other side, the forest grew denser, roots twisting across the ground and vines hanging low, turning each step into effort as the silence pressed in from every direction. In the distance, a faint flicker of warm light appeared between the trees, barely visible yet impossible to ignore, guiding her forward as if it had been waiting. The billionaire noticed something strange. There were no natural sounds at all, no movement, no life, only a silence that felt unnatural and deliberately placed. As they moved closer, the outline of a broken house slowly emerged from the shadows, its structure worn and decayed, yet standing as if it refused to disappear completely. She stopped at the entrance, gripping her suitcase tightly for a brief moment, her body still, as though preparing herself for something deeply personal and familiar. The billionaire stood behind her, staring at the house with a growing sense of unease, because something inside him whispered that this place was not new, but something he had tried to forget. The billionaire stepped inside, and the door closed behind him with a dull echo, as if the house had accepted him, sealing him into a space that felt strangely aware of his presence. A weak lantern flickered on a broken table, casting shifting shadows across cracked walls, and for a moment it felt like those shadows moved with intention rather than light alone. The maid stood in the center of the room, her back toward him, completely still, as if she had expected him to follow, her silence now heavy with something unresolved. The air inside carried dust and something older, something that felt less like neglect and more like memories left behind, slowly fading, but never fully gone. There was little in the room, just a broken chair, a torn mattress, and scattered objects placed too carefully to be random, as if each one held meaning he could not yet understand. She placed her suitcase on the table and opened it slowly, revealing a candle, a metal plate, and folded items arranged with precision like a ritual repeated over many nights. Without turning toward him, she lit the candle, and the flame flickered sharply before settling, as if reacting to something unseen within the room. Then she set the plate on the floor and gently pushed it forward into an empty space, her movements calm, yet filled with a quiet, unsettling purpose. The billionaire felt tension rise as he looked around again, confirming there was no one else there, yet her actions carried the certainty of someone not alone. Then she spoke softly into the silence, her voice low and controlled, as if addressing someone directly in front of her, someone present only in memory or truth. The billionaire stepped forward, his footsteps echoing sharply across the wooden floor, yet the maid did not react, as if his presence carried no meaning inside this strange and isolated space. She carefully arranged food on the metal plate, her movements slow and precise, repeating each action with quiet discipline, like a ritual tied to memory rather than routine or habit. Then she pushed the plate forward across the floor, stopping at an empty spot, her eyes fixed there with calm expectation, as though someone unseen was meant to receive it. The billionaire scanned the room again, searching for movement, for any sign of another presence. But the space remained empty, still and suffocatingly silent around them. "Eat before it gets cold," she whispered softly, her voice steady yet filled with restrained emotion, as if speaking to someone who mattered deeply beyond explanation. A sudden gust of wind slipped through the broken window, making the candle flicker violently, and for a brief second the shadows stretched across the walls in unnatural shapes. His heartbeat quickened as doubt began to replace logic, because what he was witnessing felt too real to ignore, yet too impossible to accept without question. He finally spoke, his voice firm but strained, asking her who she was talking to, but the question seemed to dissolve into the air without response. The maid slowly turned toward him, her eyes calm but distant, carrying a weight that suggested she had already accepted something he was only beginning to understand. And in that moment, the billionaire felt something shift inside him, because deep down he realized this was not confusion, but a truth slowly rising to the surface. The billionaire forced himself to stay composed and asked again who she was speaking to. But even as he spoke, the words felt weak inside a place that seemed to reject logic itself. The maid held his gaze in silence, her eyes steady, as if she was not looking at the man standing before her, but at something deeper, something hidden beneath his present identity. Without answering, she picked up the candle and turned toward a darker hallway at the back, the flame trembling slightly as shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls. She began to walk forward without a word, expecting him to follow, and after a brief hesitation, he did, drawn by something he could neither explain nor resist. The hallway felt colder, narrower, each step echoing louder than it should, as if the house itself was listening, aware of their movement through its forgotten space. They entered a smaller room where the walls were covered with old photographs, faded and worn, yet arranged with care, like fragments of a life that refused to disappear. The billionaire stepped closer, scanning the images, noticing the same woman in each one, younger, calm, standing beside an adult man whose face was never fully clear. One photograph held his attention longer than the rest, showing the maid standing beside that same figure near this house, both facing the camera with unsettling stillness. Something shifted inside him, not a clear memory, but a feeling, distant yet familiar, like a part of his past that had been buried too deep to recall completely. The maid stepped beside him and gently touched the photograph, her voice low as she said that some truths are never lost. They are only hidden until you are ready to face them. The maid revealed that the truth behind his life had been hidden for years, protected by power, silence, and carefully buried secrets. Every memory he trusted began to unravel as he realized his past had been taken from him long before he ever understood what was missing. When the candle suddenly went out, darkness filled the room, and the maid vanished without a trace, leaving him alone with a letter in his trembling hands. Some truths may be buried by power and time, but sooner or later, every hidden choice leaves a mark that cannot be erased. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and return for more unforgettable stories and mysteries.